Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Tyrone Squires. I am founder of the Pharmacy Benefit Institute of America. I am the founder and managing director of Transparent RX, the country's oldest fiduciary model pharmacy benefit management company. And just a little bit about me. And I'm just kind of learning this, as I get more involved in the industry. I guess people I meet in conferences and things, and they're just a little curious how I got into the business. Well, listen, it was not as a result of being an opportunist. Let me tell you that. A lot of folks get into the business, they see the money's made, so they pivot. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years, working for a drug manufacturer, owning a mail order pharmacy, and then changing gears to operating a PBM when I learned just how tough being an independent pharmacy owner was, and being, kind of, let's say bullied by the PBMs with poor reimbursements, take it or leave it. And you see today, I just read a report where the state of Ohio has the lowest number of pharmacies it's ever had on record, or something to that effect. But the bottom line is the numbers of pharmacies are going down, and a part of that is PBMs are driving them out of business. So I want you to be able to trust what I'm going to share with you today. It is in my best interest to share with you what I know today, and stick around for the entire thing, because I just got a testimonial today from a prior student in our course. He heads the pharmacy benefits unit at the CDC, Center for Disease Control. And I want you guys to be able to read this. No one has ever seen this. It just came in today, and it just gives me goosebumps. So stick around. I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so PBM 101. I want you to understand the PBM business model. Pharmacy benefit managers contract with pharmacies in order to have sites from which prescriptions can be dispensed to the PBM's plan participants. And you can see that agreement here in red. We have clients that we have to provide these services to, third-party payers, employers, unions, school districts, city, state, federal government, and also insurers. Those are our clients. Now, when an employee or a dependent of our client goes to the pharmacy and has a prescription that it needs to have filled, we will reimburse that pharmacy for the dispensed prescription. Things are a lot more complicated than what you see on your screen, but you have to understand this to understand the complicated parts. Some plan participants, they're steered to a particular pharmacy or to a particular class of drug, whether it be a brand or a generic. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. Now, the pharmacy dispenses the prescription, and let me back up. The patients are steered specifically when the PBM owns the pharmacy or has ownership in the pharmacy, whether it be mail or a specialty pharmacy. We pay the pharmacy for that dispensed prescription, and then we bill our client for that dispensed prescription. Now, there's three problems here. First, the inflow of cash in the form of rebates for a dispensed prescription is too low because PBMs are keeping too much of it. The second problem, the reimbursement, the payment from the third-party payer back to the PBM is too high. That's called a spread. We're going to talk about that as well. The third problem, which is the biggest problem where I stand, which allows problem number one and then problem number two to even occur, is the fact that the people paying or supporting the entire system financially, the third-party payers and the health plans and their consultants and brokers, know the least about how the whole system works. So instead of the major players in the system educating the entities and the people that fund it, they're taking advantage of them. They're taking advantage of them. And that's what we aim to fix. PBMs have two primary goals. The right PBMs, the intent of being a PBM, the goal is twofold. First, to contain costs. The second, to improve member outcomes and to do that safely. PBMs, although we all use the same tools, and you can see those tools on your screen here, how we actually execute can be very different. We all have the same tools, but the outcomes, the results in our performance, even though we have the same tools and tool bag, can vary significantly. And in terms of the primary goal being cost containment, here are the 4 primary cost drivers in pharmacy. The one that gets the most attention today is price. And in terms of price, the components of price, discounts off of AWP, maybe an acquisition cost plus. Also, rebates are a component of price. But I'm here to tell you that as important, if not more important than the price, because the PBMs, our pricing is really homogenous, right? Some PBMs, depending on the contract, can make prices look better than they actually are or what they're going to turn out to be, right? But our prices are really in the same ballpark. Maybe there's 2 or 3%. If we're talking about a discount off of AWP, maybe there's a 2 or 3% difference up or down, depending on the PBM. You have to remember, the pharmacies have to be paid. That's ultimately what determines the cost, what the pharmacy is being paid. If the PBM is keeping more than what the pharmacy is being paid, that's the spread. That's the spread. That's the ceiling. The floor is what the pharmacy has to be paid. And I can tell you, PBMs, we're paying the pharmacies similarly. We're paying the pharmacies similarly. So I say that to say, focus on price. It's important. But the bigger gains today are going to be made in the utilization and the product mix. What percent of drugs being dispensed are specialty or going through the specialty channel? That's utilization. How many days supply are being dispensed? That's utilization. What percent of all drugs being dispensed are generic? That's product mix. What percent of all drugs being dispensed are specialty? That's product mix. These are clinical programs, folks. These are clinical programs. They have nothing to do with price, but you know what they do impact? The cost. They impact the cost. Today, PBMs, and I'm going to have a nice blog that I've written, and I'm going to post it tomorrow. I'm going to publish it. I should say publish, not post. I'm going to publish it tomorrow, that talks about the different PBM business models. And 2 of the business models we talk about are transparent and pass-through. And in that blog, it will talk about the pass-through and the transparent PBMs. We're getting close to being fully aligned with the client, but not there yet. We're getting close with those models to being fully aligned with our clients' expectations and needs, but we're a couple steps away from getting there and meeting that full expectation. Because even the transparent or pass-through PBMs, while they might profit less from all 4 of these buckets, they are still profiting from these buckets. or one or two of these buckets, which we consider hidden cash flow streams. They're hidden because we don't know what the amount of revenue PBMs are generating for themselves from these buckets. We know it's occurring, but we don't know the amount. So from a specialty pharmacy perspective, yeah, it's easy to see, well, the patient went here and used the PBM's exclusive specialty pharmacy, and this drug costs $8,000. Yeah, but what if the patient didn't have to use that pharmacy and they could use a different pharmacy? What's that cost? So the contract in terms of price is key. I was in a presentation, a finalist presentation with a prospective client yesterday. And it is really, listen, I teach this stuff. And I'm just getting to the point now where I just want to grab people by the shirts and shake them. And shake them. We're spending all this time talking about price and going through spreadsheets when there's nothing more important that impacts price than the contract. Don't allow people to talk to you. Don't talk to me about pricing if it's not aligned in the contract, if it's not bound in the contract. That's step number one. I get it. I get it. If you look at a spreadsheet, 1 + 1 = 2. The unfortunate reality is in pharmacy benefits management, that's not true. That's not true. And so in the contracts, the PBMs that profit and drive revenue from those hidden streams that I just shared with you in the previous slide, they use tactics like this, where the buyer might not understand or be able to see in the contract the single source generics are being excluded from the discount, the generic discount guarantee. Not only excluded, but they're moved over to count into the brand discount guarantee, inflating the brand discount guarantee as well as the generic discount guarantee. Because we know single source generics have a lower discount than multi-source. We talked about rebate spreads being one of those problem areas. Let me talk to you about rebate aggregation. These are newer slides that I'm sharing with you. Today, we have a rebate aggregator. And we have a contract with that rebate aggregator. And we send to that rebate aggregator every month our claims file in a format that they require. So they give us the template. We submit our claims files in this template. They then aggregate, hence rebate aggregator. They then aggregate all of their finance files into an NCPDP format, and they consolidate those files and then send them to the drug manufacturer. The drug manufacturer will now reconcile those files against the rebate contract it has with that rebate aggregator. Once that reconciliation is done, the drug manufacturer will then deposit the funds into the rebate aggregator's bank account via ACH, along with an explanation of payments. based upon the contract those two entities have together. The rebate aggregator will now deposit those funds into its client's accounts, again, depending on the contract that the aggregator's client has with it. What I can tell you is, just because you're a PBM doesn't mean you're knowledgeable in how these things work. It doesn't mean you're knowledgeable in negotiation tactics. Also, very important point, rebate aggregators have their own formularies, and they encourage their clients to use their formulary. Why? Because of the incentives they receive from the drug manufacturers to influence what drugs are being dispensed, to influence market share. What I can tell you is our PBM and any deal that we have with a rebate aggregator, part of that deal is we're not going to use your formulary. We are going to use our own formulary, because the rebate aggregator's formulary is going to be rebate driven versus value based. It is going to be rebate driven versus value based. There's an article out today about how Merck reduced the cost of Januvia by 42%. Reduced the cost of a very popular type 2 diabetes medication by 42%. And part of that was they're not going to pay rebates anymore. You know what the big PBMs did? They took it off the formulary. They took it off the formulary because they couldn't monetize the drug. And there are other drugs in that therapeutic category that they can get rebates from. And so definitions are very important within the contract for rebates. Again, you get the minimum guarantees in a contract, but more important than the numbers in the contract is the constituent elements being spelled out in the contract. I can quote $5,000 rebate for a specialty drug. Another PBM could quote $4,000 rebate for a specialty drug. But if the terms are not spelled out, maybe the PBM offering $5,000 doesn't pay on every claim in which it receives a rebate. Maybe it pays a portion of what it received, which makes the drug specific to that claim, its net cost is higher, even though the proposed rebate was higher than the one who proposed $4,000 because they're paying every penny that they received. And so PBMs and drug manufacturers sit at the table. The drug manufacturer, and by the way, when I worked for the drug manufacturer, this was one of my jobs. In fact, it was my last job. For each drug, this is what we're going to pay. Now, how do you want to allocate these dollars? And we can even provide extra incentives for market share and pay additional rebates on that. But how do you want to allocate these dollars? Well, you can see just 4 names here for manufacturer revenue. There are other names as well. Product discounts, price protection rebates, formulary rebates. All right, let's look at really quickly how important the definition of rebates is. You look at this definition here. To the untrained eye, it looks reasonable enough. Administrator will pay customer 100% of the rebates that your administrator receives in connection with prescription drug products. In connection with the that it receives, right? Well, what if it's not a rebate that has been labeled? What if it's just an administrative fee between the drug manufacturer and the PBM? Does that count? What if the dollars were paid, but the PBM never technically received those dollars? Its subsidiary received those dollars. Broward County, state of Florida, conducted an audit, and in that audit, it was able to uncover, and it hired a law firm and did the whole deal. It was able to uncover about $500,000 in rebates that it was entitled to that it never received because Coalition for Advanced Pharmacy Services, which is a subsidiary of Optum, actually received the rebates from the drug manufacturer. Now, you will notice here, what's Express Scripts doing here? Well, it's not uncommon for PBMs, even the big ones, to piggyback on contracts from other PBMs. Maybe the drug manufacturer has one contract with an Express Scripts and says, we're not going to contract with any other PBM. You guys figure it out from there. And then Express Scripts then contracts with Coalition for Advanced Pharmacy Services for those payouts. So Coalition for Advanced Pharmacy Services is a subsidiary of Optum. It collected the rebates, not Optum. And this is what Broward County fought on and eventually won. And you can see that source here and go out on the web. Now, this is, you know, when Elon Musk created SpaceX, you know, it was 20 years ahead of everybody else to own and dominate space, right? And the folks that lack vision are like, he's like wasting money. What is he doing? What is he doing? Creating rockets and sending satellites up there. He's dominating the world. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. I thought that was maybe the biggest flex I've ever seen in business. This might be even bigger. The major PBMs have formed group purchasing organizations modeled after GPOs on the medical side, right? You know, the GPOs, you buy the medical equipment, right? Get the discounts, consolidate buying power. The major PBMs have copied that model, created rebate aggregator group purchasing organizations, because you're getting smarter. And webinars like this and courses like the Certified Pharmacy Benefits Specialist Program. Remember, stick around for that testimonial here in a second. And so they created these GPOs, and here's the flex. They contracted with the drug manufacturers, and now everyone has to go through them for the rebates. Everyone now has to go through them for the rebates. And so now Ascent and MSR and Zinc, they can say to the manufacturer, you know, we've got 100 million lives, and we don't want you to pay us rebates, right, in terms of our share, what we're going to keep. We want to charge you a GPO management fee, a GMF. The problem with that is it reduces the pool of dollars available to the PBM's clients. The drug manufacturers don't say, okay, we're going to pay you this and we're going to continue to pay the same amount we were paying before. No, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. Now, you might be thinking, well, if I'm doing business with Optum or Express Scripts or CVS, we're getting the best rebates, right? We have to be. They're at the very top. It depends on the contract. It could be the worst. It could be worse. It depends on the contract. But all things being equal, if you've got a radically transparent contract and you are at the top of this diagram, then your rebates should be higher than those entities that are at the bottom of this diagram. So this is ultimately where, if you're a self-funded employer, where you want to be. If you're aligned with an entity and you're receiving rebates from that entity, this is where you want that entity to be positioned so that you can acquire then or have the chance to acquire the highest amount of rebates. Now, remember what I said earlier. The contract is king. You could be here, but if your contract is opaque, it is not radically transparent, you could actually receive lower rebates than an entity that is here if their contract is radically transparent. So again, stay with me here. I'm doing pretty good on time. So drug manufacturers and PBMs, they'll sit at the table. This is just an example. This is an example. It's real, but depending on the drug manufacturer and the PBM, this could vary somewhat. But essentially, the drug manufacturer says, we've got X dollars to pay. What buckets do you want to put these dollars? And these are where those buckets are. And the PBM, depending upon its business model, is it a traditional PBM? Is it a pass-through PBM? Is it a fiduciary PBM? And actually how it behaves. Depending on the PBM's business model, now the PBM can ultimately decide to try and keep those rebates for itself and only pay back these rebates. Even worse, sometimes the plan sponsor doesn't even receive 100% of the formulary rebates. Sometimes they might even just receive 50% of the formulary rebates, and everything else the PBM is keeping. And I'm saying this sarcastically. That's my director of account management. Sorry about that. But here's the beauty of, if you're a traditional PBM, of that business model, of that revenue model, is that if you keep rebates and keep spreads, it's all hidden in the final cost to the plan. It's all hidden in the final cost to the plan. Even the Form 5500 doesn't break it out. There's nothing that says the PBM earned $2 million on a $10 million spend. There's nothing that says that. I'm going to get to that here in a second. So ideally, here's the goal. The challenge with the fiduciary model is there's limited availability in the market. At last count, there's about 4 PBMs purporting to be fiduciary. I've not seen either one of those PBMs contracts to say yes, they're fiduciary or no, they're not. But with the fiduciary model, the PBM makes money one way, a per member per month fee. You can even do a PEPM. I prefer a PMPM. That's how it makes its money. If you add on some bolt-on solutions, MTM, maybe international sourcing, whatever it is, TAP programs, copay assistance program. If you add these on, the PMPM goes up. You add pharmacogenomics. You add these in, the PMPM goes up. The important thing to remember is you got to have the data to verify that that's what's happening. Without that, the PBM ain't fiduciary. The PBM ain't fiduciary. You need, for rebates, you need to be able to see the invoices that the rebate aggregator is sending the PBM, and you need to be able to have claim level data for the rebates or drugs that earn rebates. What was guaranteed, what was paid. If the guarantee and what was paid always match, guaranteed the PBM is keeping dollars. Sometimes what's paid is lower than the guarantee. Other times what's paid is higher than the guarantee. But when the PBM is fiduciary, it gives you a minimum guarantee, and it's probably conservative, but it should outperform that minimum guarantee with all of those dollars going back to the client. That's pricing. All of that was pricing. Let's talk about UM and product mix. Do you understand the contracts, the definitions of rebates, the definition of brand, generic, specialty drugs? Are you working with someone who knows what they're talking about? Are you working with an expert? What are you paying for today? How are you measuring outcomes and results? And are you driving improved clinical outcomes? Isn't that the point? I understand, employers offer benefits because they want a competitive to retain and hire the best employees. But if you're spending $10 million, don't you want to see a return on that? A healthier workforce, a happier workforce. And so that's really what the PBMs should be driving to, is helping people get better and making a fair return or charging a fair fee for that effort, not monetizing drug claims. So I'm going to show you some metrics here, and I'm not trying to sell you. I'm giving you baseline information on what it looks like, right? With what the reports should look like when the PBM is PBMing the right way. The right way is safety first, outcome second, cost containment third, and patient satisfaction fourth, in that order. I talked about our formulary and how when we work with a rebate aggregator, we're not going to use yours. We know what you're doing. We have our own formulary that we're going to use. And it's going to drive value and still provide the same level of access. The formulary is key. Once you get the formulary right, now you've got to have the right utilization management programs alongside that formulary. Not only do you have to have the right ones, they've got to be managed right. I talked about the two primary objectives of a PBM. I showed you what the services are we all offer, but I also mentioned that the results can vary. They can vary. And that variation is around execution. This is our PA process. And it scares a lot of folks, right? Worried about, members can't get access, complaining to HR. Listen, I share with you, participant satisfaction is number 4. It's number 4. It's not number 1. If you want a PBM the right way, that doesn't mean you can't have high participant satisfaction, because you can. I mean, shoot, the big PBMs today have net promoter scores below 10. And you can essentially get whatever you want from them. With no scrutiny or little scrutiny, especially when it comes to specialty drugs through their specialty pharmacies. Even when a lower cost therapeutic alternative is as efficacious. So our PA process, listen, if it's a brand drug presented and it's not on our formulary, denied, no exceptions. We've taken that off the plate of our pharmacists. Pharmacists think, well, it's not going to harm them. Let's just approve it. No, we have a formulary for a reason. Now, with that denial comes the recommendation to the physician for the lower cost therapeutic alternative that is on the formulary. Let me tell you a quick story. I was a drug sales rep before I moved into the market access team leading rebates. And listen, I can provide verified proof for stuff I say, because I know everybody just talks out the side of their mouth. I don't. My first job in healthcare, pharmaceutical sales rep, I took over a territory in Detroit that was ranked like 600 out of 612. And within 18 months, I had taken the territory from 600 to number 11 in the country, got promoted. You know how I did it? Going into the doctor's offices and saying, hey, why don't you do this for me? Why don't you prescribe Actos over metformin, even though Actos costs 20 times more? Let's go grab a steak when you get off work. Today, that is TV ads. Today, it's ads on the internet. Today, it's influencers. So the point of a value-based formulary, the point of having an efficient PA process where the approval or denial isn't rubber stamped, is to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. That's what utilization management programs do. Prior authorization programs are a utilization management program. So now, just in terms of cost management, this is our cost management process, and I'm sharing this with you, right? You saw the our prior authorization process. Again, the formulary is very important as well. You want to provide access, but you want to do it based on value, not driving rebates. And in that prior authorization process, every single drug gets these 3 checks. every drug gets these 3 checks in addition to the lower cost therapeutic alternative check. And for us, the retail specialty pharmacy is the last stop in the workflow, because every other stop before it is less costly. This is what happens when you're freed from formulary restrictions of the rebate aggregator and you don't own pharmacies. If you own a specialty pharmacy, who's really going to say no to $10,000 even though they know a drug that costs $500 would do the same job? I talk about the metrics. I don't know what to say about this, because it's probably not what you're used to seeing. And if I say we can have these metrics and still have high net promoter scores, depending on the month, 60, 70, 80 NPS, 70 to 80 year over year, probably won't believe me. But if prior authorization approval rates are 70 and above, it's inefficient. It's inefficient. And there's wasteful spend. I will say, I didn't mention this on the appeals. We do levels 1 and 2 in-house. Different clinical pharmacists do those. But if there's a third pill, we send it out. We don't even deal with it. We send it out to an independent review organization, and we have no input into their decision. If it's a specialist, a physician that needs to be a part of it, and maybe it's not a level 3, maybe we move it up to level 2, we send it out. Okay, really quickly. ICER, I believe ICER is a nonprofit. I think they're a nonprofit. But anyway, the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, ICER, they published this benchmark report. They're really the gold standard in calculating cost benefit and doing these analysis on drugs, right? And their HBPB benchmark report provides the top price range in which a health system can reward innovation and better health for patients without doing more harm than good. The weight loss drugs, the GLP-1s, the annual net price is significantly higher than the ICER benchmark price, which means it's wasteful spending when these are being dispensed for weight loss purposes, which means it's doing more harm than good. That's why with these medications, you have to have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That's it. And for the Zepbounds and Wegovy's, from a cost effectiveness standpoint, today, this could change as we get more clinical data. But today, they're doing more harm than good if you believe ICER. And I do. Opioids, again, clinical programs. PBMs are being sued for their role in the opioid epidemic now. This is what we're supposed to do. Remember, I gave you 4 bullet points in order of importance. Safety, outcomes, 1 and 2. Safety is number 1. PBMs should not be allowing patients to get access to these dangerous, addictive drugs too often. All right, and I'm wrapping up here. I'm doing pretty good. All right, now, this is a new metric that we have created. It wasn't out there before, right? New metric, specialty dispensing rate. You know generic dispensing rate, right? Specialty dispensing rate. What percent of all drugs being dispensed are specialty? It was 3 or 4 years ago, 1%, 1.5%. Now you're starting to see 3 or 4%. The drug manufacturers and the PBMs want this. They want more utilization of specialty drugs. Here's the cost impact of that. Now, this is based on the average cost of a 28-day supply of a specialty drug at $8,500. Doesn't matter. If you think that's too high, it won't matter. You'll see here in a second. If you think it's $6,000 or $5,500, it won't matter. Based on $8,500 and I think $100 for non-specialty drugs. Look at the price difference when you go from 2% of drugs being dispensed specialty to 4% being dispensed specialty. It is a $9 million difference. It is a $9 million difference on a $10 million spend when we're looking at about 54,000 total prescriptions for the year. $9 million. If you think about it, you add one drug at $8,000 per month. For the year, it's $100K. It's 96 grand. It doesn't take much. And I'm not suggesting that members should not get access to these. Listen, what drug manufacturers are doing and creating cures in some cases, at a minimum, helping people live longer or feel better. They have no bigger fan than me in what they are doing. What I'm saying is we have to make sure that these are the most cost-effective drugs that members should be taking. If there's one that is as cost-effective but cost 1/20th the price, then the member should be taking that. Shoot, we could go one step further. Some members are getting these drugs, but when you look at the patient selection criteria, when you look at the FDA labeling, when you look at the clinical trial checkpoints, they shouldn't be taking them in the first place. The financial impact of generic dispensing rate. This is based on a $10.5 million spend. You can crunch the numbers yourself. But today we're just using, for every 1% increase in GDR, a plan realizes a 5% decrease in gross cost. Think about it. You're exchanging a drug that costs $500 for one that costs in the neighborhood of $20 to $25. You're exchanging a brand drug for a generic drug. That's what the GDR is. The PBMs that are leveraging low product mix metrics or poor GDR, and I call anything below 88 poor. But when you get to 83 or 84 or 85, the PBM is intentionally driving to that number. So while it may 84 versus 90 might not seem significant, it's very significant. It's very significant. And you could even run this specific to a plan sponsor's claim profile. You can calculate the average cost of a brand drug, non-specialty, or you can include specialty, and you can calculate the average cost of a generic drug. And then based on that, it's a real quick calculation in Chat GPT. You don't need to upload any claims files. It's a real quick calculation. Average cost of brand, average cost of generic. Here's the total spend. Now, in 1% increments from 84 to 90, tell me what the cost savings is. By moving the generic dispense rate from 84, 85 through 90. In this case, it's a $3 million savings on a $10.5 million spend by going from 84 to 90. Members don't lose access. In the reading I gave you, and I'm wrapping up here, stay with me. In the reading that I share with you, it was a part of this training, and it is this playbook here. From an employer standpoint, director of benefits, a CFO, I've not read a better one. I've not read a better one. On page 7, it pinpoints the flaws in evaluating PBM proposals. 2 of the flaws that it talks about is the lack of focus on drug mix and the lack of focus on total cost of care, and measuring that by the PM cost, and measuring that by the PM cost. And this is what that looks like, right? You gotta have in there the utilization, and you've gotta have in there the product mix, which is what clinical intercession makes up. The incumbent PBM in this scenario, the GDR was right around 83 and a half. Our book performs above 90. Instant savings with no drop in patient satisfaction. Instant savings. But I talked about earlier, the admin fee for the fiduciary PBM is higher. And so that number, when a client is used to seeing 0 or 40,000 or 50,000, is counterintuitive to them. That's why I say, work with people who know what they're doing. That report that is a part of this training will spell out everything that I'm sharing with you right now. Matter of fact, I think they copied our stuff to write that report, but that's neither here nor there. Sat Brothers, a client now going on 2 years. I think in April, 2 years. In the first year, they won a Rosie Award from Health Rosetta. And if you talk to Ty Franklin or Katie, they will tell you it was in no small part to the PBM performance. Everything we do that I just talked about is what we do for them. I'm not trying to sell you. I'm giving you baselines from which to work from. The PA approval rates, the appeal approval rates, same for them. All right. Now, I want to share with you really quickly. This is just like a real feel good type story. But I want to share this with you really quickly. And let me pull it up. Give me 10 seconds here. And if you have any questions, you can fire those off right now. If you have any questions. I'm going to go through I see my stuff is blinking. I'm going to go through that here in a second, but I'm pulling this up right now. Okay. Okay. So Frank Chin went through our certified pharmacy benefit specialist course in 2023. And he leads the pharmacy benefits team for the CDC, the World Trade Center Health Program, and he's a pharmacist by trade. And as you can imagine, the government spends a lot of money and has all the resources in the world. And this is what he writes to me today. And I just wanted to share it with you. Get my program back over 41 million in rebates. If that doesn't give you the chills, I don't know what will. This is fantastic. Right? So, okay. All right. That is my time today. Let me see if I have any questions in here. Yeah, that is my time today. I'm going to stick around just in case any questions.